Greetings, beloved. I am Reverend Dr. Stacy Cole Wilson, the Executive Minister of Beloved Community, and it is my honor to share with you our 2022 We Rise United Annual Conference Report. Since its inclusion in the United Methodist Church Constitution in 1968, the United Methodist Church proclaims the value of each person as a unique child of God and commits itself to the healing and wholeness of all persons. The United Methodist Church recognizes that the sin of racism has been destructive to its unity throughout its history. Racism continues to cause painful division and marginalization. The United Methodist Church shall confront and seek to eliminate racism, whether in organizations or in individuals, in every facet of its life and in society at large. The United Methodist Church shall work collaboratively with others to address concerns that threaten the cause of racial justice at all times and in all places. This work was unfinished in 1968, and it is unfinished today. More recently, in 2016, the Northeastern jurisdiction unanimously adopted the call to action for racial justice. Since then, the Baltimore-Washington Conference has revitalized its commitment to strategically, faithfully, and steadily invest time, dollars, and resources in the work of anti-racism and building beloved community. The Baltimore-Washington Conference seeks to end racism in all of its forms so that all might be free, liberated from oppression and inequities that prevent abundant life. Through committing to be an anti-racist church that is ever growing in its cultural humility and embodying anti-racism, we hope to both address the intent of the NEJ call to action and increase our capacity to build beloved communities so that we can see all the people deepen discipleship, live and love like Jesus, and multiply our impact. To build a framework and pathways for this work to be continued in and beyond our lifetime, we've set out to accomplish 5 goals, and they are: Goal 1, increase by 10% per year the number of congregations who are on a pathway to becoming an anti-racist church, so that by 2022, all of our BWC churches are on a pathway toward becoming racial justice change agents. At last year's annual conference, we celebrated 80% of congregations who reported being on a pathway toward becoming racial justice change agents. We haven't moved the needle significantly yet. And in order to reach this first goal, we invite church leaders from congregations who've reported not being on a pathway to do one of 3 things. Arrange for me or one of our team members to facilitate a contextual, brave conversation with your leaders about what your first step might be. 2, attend the next Journey to Beloved Community Orientation on September 15, 2022, or email me to schedule a one-to-one conversation. As evidenced by the growth in numbers along the racial justice pathway within the Discipleship Ministries report, we celebrate that between last year and this year, we've accomplished the first half of the goal, of Goal 2, which is that each local church reports on its progress as related to the call to action on racial justice and on its internal and external conversations annually at Church Charge Conference, with 10% more churches engaged than the year before. The second half of the goal is that by 2026, 100% of our congregations are doing work to grow in 6 actions of beloved community throughout the conference. These 6 actions are seeking relationships because this is how Jesus lived, with an understanding that we are interrelated and interconnected people. Examine our own assumptions and perceptions so that we might avoid projecting our cultural values onto others. Listen for understanding because agreement is optional. Respect different forms of expression, understanding that we may not really know what is going on. Assume positive intent as we are all moving on to perfection, and exercise cultural humility, understanding that the world in which we were born is just one model of reality. If we habitually practice these 6 actions with compassion, we are better positioned to respect the divine image of God in one another, disrupt biases that prevent us from wholly seeing one another as God sees us, and build relationships across various dimensions of difference for the transformation of ourselves, communities, and world. As reported last year, we have strengthened the accountability structure so that residents in ministry, the Board of Ordained Ministry, district committees on ordained ministry, DSs, and staff are resourced to grow in their ability to embody inclusion, diversity, equity, and anti-racism. We're also on track to accomplish Goal 3, which is using a validated assessment to consistently onboard and develop DSs, staff, conference leaders, and clergy consistently so that by 2022, all staff and by 2024, all active clergy leaders are working on growing a gospel-centered, multicultural heart set, mindset, and skill set. We have achieved Goal 4 that by spring 2022, each cross-racial, cross-cultural appointment engage in cross-cultural work from appointment through the first year with experienced guides so that both pastor and congregational leaders set goals and grow in the actions named in the Beloved Community Covenant. In addition to orientation for all new CRCC appointments, the 2022 class of A Diverse Church by Design started with over 30 CRCC congregations represented. Goal 5 is that our institutional practices are just and inclusive regarding ethnicity, gender, ability, and other elements of diversity, so that again, we see the 6 actions of the Beloved Community Covenant practiced throughout the conference. This is an ongoing work that includes each one of us to examine our policies and procedures across the conference to ensure that there is equity, inclusion, diversity, anti-racism, and accessibility in our policies. Now, we celebrate and are grateful. We are grateful for an Asian American Pacific Islander $10,000 grant from the General Board of Global Ministries designated to dismantle racism specific to those communities through public witness, education, outreach, and action. We were grateful to offer the BWC Church and Community Equity Grants for persons disproportionately impacted by COVID-19. $36,000 was distributed to congregations in 7 of the 8 districts. We are grateful for the Human Relations Day grant in the amount of $10,000 to continue building beloved community across the conference. And we continue with ongoing efforts to examine pay equity and policies and procedures across our annual conference, including Boom's Gender and Equity Study, along with many other studies that are in process. Now, we celebrate congregations that are embodying and multiplying this work in and beyond their local communities with faithfulness, empathy, compassion, and great resolve. So, beloved, we invite you to go to bwcumc.org/WeRiseUnited to engage in one or more of the following. Download the Beloved Community Covenant. If you haven't done so already, let us know that you are taking actions outlined in the commitment to embodying anti-racism form with your signature. Enroll in the People's Supper. Host a listening party for the Unfinished Church podcast. And keep doing the work. End oppression in all forms. Thank you for remaining engaged in building beloved community, moving beyond words to faithful actions that make inclusion, diversity, equity, anti-racism, and I'm going to add accessibility real, and for being hopeful about what we can be together in the name and power of God toward abundant life for all. This is our prayer and practice. So help us God. Amen.